about another interesting game that's going to be kind of a good game to watch? And let's think about this. If Texas A&M finds a way to beat number 4 Georgia, one, the ramifications for Georgia, and two, that's a very real possibility.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, Georgia should win. They should win all the way out. They should play LSU in the SEC championship game. But then you got Bama hanging out there at 5. So if Georgia loses in the SEC championship game, does that slide Bama in, or does that bring Oregon, who will actually be playing in their conference championship game? You know, you bring up like interesting stuff. If Georgia loses here, because Bama's right behind them in Oregon. So when you talk playoff scenarios, that's where it gets really fun. Whenever if Georgia takes another loss, so they should win today, but they still got a couple more games. And like I said, you know, that other game is the SEC championship game, where I don't see them beating LSU. So then the fun's going to start. What do you do, Bama, Oregon, Utah, the teams sitting there behind them?
You know, you mentioned Oregon. Oregon's got a big game on the road against Arizona State tonight as well.
Yeah, primetime game. I like Arizona State. They're not going to win this game, but they're fun to watch, and they're really good. They got the oh gosh, what's his name? He's the NFL coach. Who's their head coach now? His name just escaped me. I have no idea.
The guy that used to coach for the Jets. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Jets. I think he coached the Chiefs. He was on ESPN for a while. I had no idea.
Get him confused with Tony Dungy real easy. I know the face is right there in front. The face is there, but like the name is like, hey, but he didn't even know.
He's always
he didn't even know he didn't even know what the mascot was when he first got hired. So that was great. That's the takeaway from there. Herm Edwards, there we go. Da, 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 da.
I have no idea why that name escaped me.
All right, Utah at the other Arizona.
Yeah, if Utah wants to play the Pac-12 championship game, they're going to have to win out too. It should be a Utah-Oregon showdown for the Pac-12 championship, and in a winner of that, do they take over that number 4 spot in the playoff? Because I think Georgia's not going to beat LSU, and they should jump over Alabama, right? Because Bama won't play in their conference championship games. So you have a conference champion getting in over Bama. Do you talk about who's more deserving, or who do you think was more likely to win if they got in the playoffs? So it's a fun conversation for a whole other day, because we could spend a half hour of just talking playoff scenarios.
And we're getting close to that half hour. Oklahoma versus TCU. Really. So, go ahead.
Yeah, Oklahoma is just on the fringe of the playoff conversation now. That big comeback win last week against Baylor just kept them hanging around. They need a lot of help to get back up into the top 4 after that loss to Kansas State. But they're hanging out in the conversation just barely. But this is just one of those games you're going to have to win. They're going to have to win out the rest of the way. And
Minnesota.
They can't just barely beat teams. They're going to beat them big to stay in the conversation.
Where are we at in the conversation with Minnesota? 2 weeks ago, we were all about it, but now they just kind of seem to have dried up on the vine, if you will. Minnesota at Northwestern certainly should win this game, but we're just not hearing a lot of buzz about Minnesota anymore.
Well, that loss last week killed their chances. So, they had a weak non-conference schedule, leading up to that Penn State win, and then that catapulted them up to the top 10. But then they lost last week, so yeah, they're out. They're out of the playoff contention anyway. They're still a line for New Year's Six probably, but no playoff hopes this year for Minnesota. That's all gone.
Wisconsin visits Purdue. Purdue. I mean, we could actually have the conversation that the surprise between the two teams, between IU and Purdue this year is that Purdue has been a huge disappointment, whereas IU has not been. But Wisconsin goes into West Lafayette, should be a relatively easy game for the Badgers.
It should, and both programs are actually kind of forgotten programs this year because Wisconsin started off the year great. I believe they were in the top 4 before the playoff rankings even started. But that's also like Wisconsin's football existence, right? To be in the top 5 and then lose when you have to actually win and then never win anything. I think that Wisconsin's whole football existence, that's the reason why they exist, to be ranked in the top 5 and then lose.
Yeah, that's it. Get it all figured out there, bro.
I think that's correct. I think that's right.
We talked about Michigan and Indiana, but what about Baylor at Texas?
I like Baylor. I like their head coach, Matt Rule. They should have beat Oklahoma last week. It was a hell of a comeback in the second half of Oklahoma to come back and win that game close. I mean, I think they were robbed out of a victory last week, really. There's going to be some carryover from that game to this, and I like Baylor in this game, but I would not be surprised if they lost to Texas just because of how that game ended last week.
Right now, if you were to look at the Big Ten championship, who would be in it?
It would be Ohio State, obviously, and probably Minnesota.
Any chance at all that IU gets in there?
Well, the teams ahead of them, I don't know how how the divisions in the conference line up, but the teams ahead of them, who's ahead of IU? I mean, I can pull it up, I guess. But IU's got 3 losses, and Minnesota only has 1. So Minnesota also has to lose 2 other games, and then who has the tiebreaker between Minnesota and IU?
Well, the last I checked, IU is at 9 or 8, and Minnesota's at 10, ranked 10th.
Okay, but then you look at
now that's nationally. That's not necessarily what it is in the actual Big Ten. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, IU should be ranked this week. Yeah.
Stand by.
Yeah, go ahead and look that up because Minnesota IU has 2 more losses than what Minnesota does, all right? So Minnesota have to lose this week and next week, and IU's got to win both weeks. And I don't know if Minnesota and IU has played each other this year because I just don't keep track of all that, that closely. But there'd be a tiebreaker. What would the tiebreaker would be between the two? So if you ask me what IU's chances are of playing in the Big Ten, I would say it's 0.00001% chance.
0.00000 Well, we've been talking with Rick Riggin, our official college football contributor. Rick, let's just shift gears as we get ready to go into the NFL talk. Ed Kracz not going to be able to join us today. His son's in town, and they're doing the family Thanksgiving thing, so it's going to be Mo for the BS Sports Show. But, we titled the show today, Play the Race Card. And, I was all, okay, we had the conversation last week about all of these things with Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph with the Steelers and the Browns, and we talked with Ed. We got his analyzation of it. Everybody seemed to think it was one of those situations that happened. He took ownership for it. He got suspended, as he should be. However, waits a complete week before he ever mentions it to anybody, gets into the NFL to try to get out of his suspension, and says, oh, Mason Rudolph threw a racial slur at me. Now, don't get me wrong. I could understand if that actually happened, of somebody getting upset. But, first of all, why wouldn't that be something that you led with? Why would you wait a week? And then
right.
The NFL says, we can't find anything that even alludes to that. And Mason Rudolph doesn't even have a history of anything like that going on. I think this just puts everybody in a bad light, and this suspension is not going to carry over till next year with Myles Garrett Myles. But I just think, what the heck? I mean, what are your thoughts on? Just because we can, let's play the race card. I mean, don't get me wrong, racism is bad and should not be done, but it also should not be used as your get out of jail free card.
Well, it's sports at its ugliest, right? That whole incident, it's really unbelievable. But you're right. If that was truly the case, if Mason Rudolph said something like that, then I could think Myles Garrett should just let off with that from the get-go. This is what he did, what he said. This is what led me to do this. You don't wait until like later in the week when your suspension, your appeal doesn't get, if you don't win your appeal and then start saying that, you make a case in it. You should just leave off that from the get-go. Even if that was the case, I still think he's done for the rest of the year. And I'm also with you. I can see where something like that happens if Mason Rudolph did, use a racial slur. But I don't know how you prove it because you can't do that video footage. You can't hear anything. So how do you even prove it anyway? I mean, it could have happened. It really could have happened. He could have said something. But, of course, you deny it, and all that video footage of everything we've seen, you can't hear any audio. So how do you even prove it in the first place?
Yeah, and they've got mics everywhere in the NFL. I would just think that in the heat of the moment, and if you're saying something like that, you're not going to whisper it. I just, the fact that, I guess that's just one of the problems with our society. We just, if all else fails, he's not been the only player. We can point to a lot of players that say, oh, well, here's the race card. Let me pass. It gets to be a point of ridiculous.
Why he's trying to take his helmet off in the first place. I thought Mason Rudolph trying to take off Myles Garrett's helmet. He really did that. That's what set off Myles Garrett. Is Myles Garrett shouldn't have dropped him to the ground, shouldn't have kept tackling him when the game is over. It's the last play of the game, and bring him down to the ground the way he did. But I could see Mason Rudolph getting mad, but Mason Rudolph should have picked a different way to get mad because he actually tried to take Myles Garrett's helmet off first. So that escalated everything. Myles Garrett's already frustrated. Myles Garrett's also 6'5" and like 280. So I don't know why you even tried to take that guy's helmet off. Because you know what he's going to do next. He's probably going to pummel you. And that's exactly what he did. So the whole thing is ugly. It's ugly from the get-go. So the racial slur thing, though, is, that's just one of those Hail Mary attempts to get a suspension reduced.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's where I have a problem with the race card. Not that if Mason Rudolph said it, but even at that, let's just say that Mason Rudolph did throw a racial slur. That's fine. I get it. I understand, and that would make a person upset. But that still doesn't justify ripping the helmet off and taking a swing at it. A lot of ifs could have happened.
Yeah, the Happy Gilmore treatment, right? Happy Gilmore, first guy to ever take a stick off and stab a guy with it. Well, Myles Garrett removed the piece and tried to kill a guy with it too. And he did the exact Happy Gilmore move. And I think the only guy in the NFL that ever tried to do it. It's pretty impressive, really.
I did see the Happy Gilmore. That is a movie you gotta. If you've not seen Happy Gilmore, gotta watch it. There's a lot of watch
one
movies.
of the all-timers. One of the all-timers, definitely.
So we're coming up on the holidays. First of all, let's establish this. It was the Bruce Willis movie, a Christmas movie. Why does that name escape me right now?
Die Hard.
Die Hard. Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
Yeah.
Was that a Christmas movie?
Yes. Yes.
Bruce Willis says it is
correct.
Not a Christmas movie.
It's definitely a Christmas movie. Actually, I just watched it 2 weeks ago because it was just on TV. So, it only comes on during Christmas season. The movie itself takes place during Christmas. So, I don't know what's not Christmas about it.
I don't know. Bruce Willis says it wasn't Christmas, but the debate continues. Christmas Vacation, the best Christmas movie?
My opinion is yes.
I love that movie. Also, Christmas Story. Those are all great holiday classics. Thanksgiving is always a day when movies come out and people go to the movies and the box office see a surge. And it's 2019 Thanksgiving movie release. What should we go see? Because you are more of a